Radio TV Phono Nut here, and we have our Crosley guinea pig back out. You might recall a couple of videos we did on this recently where we proved that the reason that these don't sound the best is because, number one, the tiny speakers, number two, there's a severe impedance mismatch between the cartridge and the amplifier input. These amplifier inputs are basically designed for line level impedance, and when you couple that low impedance line level input with a ceramic cartridge that wants to see a high impedance input, we have poor sound quality, more notably lack of low end. And when you couple that with speakers that don't sound worth a crap in the first place, it just doesn't make for a good combination. Even plugging the line output jacks into an external amplifier, it's still lacking in low end because of the impedance mismatch between the cartridge and the amplifier. It sounds better than these little speakers, but still nothing to write home about. However, if we plug a line level source into the auxiliary jack, something such as a CD player, and connect the line output jack to another amplifier, it sounds decent with a line level source. And for that matter, you might recall we disconnected the internal speakers and connected the amplifier to some 1970s all-in-one stereo speakers, and with a CD player as a signal source, it actually sounded pretty decent and had a lot more volume than what it has with these little internal speakers. So I got to doing some checking around, and the amplifier in this set, as far as me modifying the actual circuit, that's just out of the question. There's too many surface mounted parts, and it's just too tiny, and I'm just not going there. So I got to looking on the internet, and I found a little circuit that we might can build to go between the cartridge and the amplifier input that'll match the impedance, and this thing might actually sound a little. Okay, here's the little circuit I came up with. Well, actually, I didn't come up with it. I found it on the internet, and it's centered around an N-channel JFET connected as a common drain or source follower, whichever you choose. This really won't give us any amplification, any gain, but it will help match our impedance. Now, a FET has operating characteristics that are similar to a vacuum tube, as in both devices have a high input impedance. So we have our cartridge connected to the input going into the gate of the FET, and then coming out of the source of the FET, we have a capacitor that couples that to the input of our amplifier in the Crosley, and then we have our 12-volt DC source connected directly to the drain of the FET. Of course, this is stereo, so we'll have to build two of these little circuits to accomplish our mission here, but as you can see, the parts count is not much. We have a 2.2 megohm resistor between gate and ground, a 1K resistor between source and ground, and then a 10 microfarad coupling capacitor there, and that keeps any DC off of our amp input in the Crosley, and then the drain connection terminal just connects to the 12-volt DC source. So 1, 2, 3, 4 parts times 2, so 8 little components needed for stereo. Now the sound quality through the speakers here will probably only be marginally better, but some improvements better than no improvement. But it should be a great deal better when using the line output jacks on the rear of the record player. Like if I wanted to use this to transfer some lo-fi 78 RPM records to the computer or whatever, You know, this would be a convenient way to do it, and we'd still get a little bass out of the deal. Okay, we have our speakers reconnected from where I disconnected them from my little experiment in the last video. Now we'll put everything back together and make sure it works as good as it did, as in we don't have a dead channel or anything like that. Well, we're now back to doing what we were doing when we first got this. The right channel's cutting out, and I can wiggle the volume pot and make it come back.
Through the dangerous vine jungle and across the sands of time.
And it's a little staticky, which is just a sign of a crappy pot, because I think we sprayed this before. It's really one of those situations where I'm asking myself why I'm even bothering with this. I'm sure you've probably already asked that question a bunch of times, because we know these use substandard cheap parts that don't hold up. And I'm sure I could come up with a volume control, but you know, it would be just as equally cheap as what came out of it. And by the time I get through modifying this thing, it gets, you know, I could have gone out and bought a nice vintage record player that would be 1,000 times better anyway. But at least it's this is something to play around with anyway. Alright, I resoldered the pot again and sprayed it with cleaner again, and now the left channel's cutting out intermittently.
Closest friend, Sheila.
But we'll still play around with this. Alright, here's our crude mock-up here. Of course, two of them wired together for stereo. Our red wire is going to carry our 12 volts to both of our drains, and then these these four resistors, the 1K and the 2.2 meg. In this case, we went with 2.7 because that's what I had on hand, and it should work. Have all of those resistors that go to ground tied together. Our input will go in right here, left here, and right over here. And then our outputs will come out of these capacitors here, left and right. Alright, here we are, all cludged into place here. Now, the proper way to do this would be to mount our little circuit on a piece of phenolic board, and then mount the board somewhere under here out of sight. But we're just doing this for a test right now, and then we'll worry about the rest later. Well, we have something. Alright, it sounds like we're picking up some hum. It's dependent on the volume control setting. It's louder, but it's also distorted. So we may have to play with those input resistors some. I don't know why I just don't EOL this thing, which was my plan from the beginning. I don't know why I'm trying to make chicken salad out of chicken. There's our feedback. And I've already checked, and this metal tone arm tube is not grounded like it should be. I think what I'll do tomorrow is connect the line outputs of this to another amplifier and see what it sounds like through that. And then we'll determine what we need to do to our little preamp, or excuse me, our little impedance matching circuit. Yeah, this thing is so unshielded that when I even bring my hand close to the tone arm, well, you can hear what it's doing. It's acting stupid. Okay, I'm doing with it what I should have done in the first place. Well, that stopped the motor. But as you can tell, it didn't take much to destroy this, and I've reached my threshold on this piece of junk. And it's like they say, there's no sense in trying to make chicken salad out of chicken. You know, whenever I've got better vintage record players that are already designed for decent performance. And what's the point of bothering with some crap like this? So the best thing to do is have a little fun with it and be done with it. Well, you know, I realized I got so carried away after going back and watching the footage that I forgot to show the actual slam dunk of the wire stripper meeting the plastic. So we'll do it one more time. We'll do it here just so you'll get an idea. Well, that's one way to dismount the amplifier.